Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure and privilege to be with you this morning. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Across the globe, public sector leaders share many of the same leadership challenges, namely leading the self, leading others, and leading the organization and adapting to the external environment. Public sector leaders require key skill sets that can be applied to addressing their challenges in a competitive organizational environment. Leadership competencies such as self-awareness, communication, resilience, negotiation, problem-solving are all measurable, learnable, and transferable skills that can be developed through training and coaching. Professor Julian Barling dedicated a chapter of his book entitled The Science of Leadership to discuss leadership interventions or programs in organizations. He responded to the critical question, can leadership be taught? And are leadership interventions effective? His unequivocal conclusion was yes, based on the results of research analyses, with interventions having moderate or strong effect on the performing of the organization. Acquiring the necessary core competencies can be enhanced through a process of learning that aligns the business requirements with values, thus encompassing values-based approach to leaders' development. This novel approach of human resource development will offer an enriched learning experience that is naturally in harmony with the stakeholders' aspirations. Let me first emphasize that leadership is not a destination. It's not something that you reach and complete, but it's a lifelong professional development process. The capacity for developing a leadership role is not the privilege of few people, but could be the choice of far many people than we realize. Leadership, ladies and gentlemen, is a relationship built on trust. Integrating work with religious principles is not uncommon among followers of major religious traditions. The Christian monastic practice of working and praying was carried out over centuries to the present day. Saint Benedict viewed prayer and work as complementary human endeavors. To him, work was a means to attain goodness in life. Martin Luther reaffirmed that a good work is when a man works at his trade and that God is well pleased with that activity. The Dalai Lama expressed a similar view regarding the intimate connection between work and daily prayer and meditation in his life. Religious saints, sages, and prophets were renowned for their work ethics, emphasizing that work and prayer are means of fulfilling their purpose in life and seeking the pleasure of God. There is a growing urgency of developing a leadership model in support of the highly complex environment facing public organizations, especially in the context of recurrent challenges such as high stakeholder demand for service quality, public services impacted by disruptive technologies today, demands of environmental sustainability, and recurring economic recessions causing markedly constrained financial resources available for public services. To maintain a high leadership standard, there is a pressing need to formulate a more creative approach to education and learning at all levels. Training of the soul is as important to achieving our development goals today as is training the mind. Today, we cannot overstate the case of an inspiring educational strategy that will place personal values and social responsibility at the heart of our professional business development and economic activity. It has been widely accepted that leader development is focused on three main areas of skill development: cognitive, socio-emotional, and behavioral. Within the category of cognitive skills, leader development seeks to enhance a leader's ability to recognize, understand, and solve problems, and to develop the capacity for critical thinking and planning. Socio-emotional or personal skills focus on a leader's ability to communicate with team members and to discern the personal dynamics of an organizational situation. Behavioral skills development influences the transformational leaders' exemplary practices based on 4 factors that are instrumental in producing positive change. You see from the slide, leaders with idealized influence exhibit adherence to a set of underlying principles and organizational values. Idealized influence encompasses modeling exemplary behaviors that raise the level of trust among group members and sustain active engagement and effective commitment to the organization, without which success will be difficult to achieve. The other factor, individualized consideration to team members, are seen as ones who pay attention to followers' individual needs for self-actualization and growth. They do so by creating learning opportunities as well as a supportive professional climate that empowers followers to take initiative and grow. Another factor without which is difficult to ensure success in an organizational setting. The third, inspirational motivation, and that involves providing meaning and encouragement to followers' work, including inculcating positive visions of the future. I think this is what the Premier was just doing in his speech. Inspirational motivation is vitally important in encouraging team members to seek higher order aims, sacrificing, if necessary, their desire to personal gains. And finally, the fourth factor is intellectual stimulation. It entails encouraging followers to question assumptions, reframe problems, and to find solutions to new challenges. New ideas and creative solutions are solicited from followers, and there is no public criticism of individuals' mistakes. Transformational leadership and authentic leadership, ladies and gentlemen, are two potent models of values-based leadership that have been underscored in the literature as being impactful on organizational performance. Authentic leaders have the clarity of purpose, the guidance of personal values, the capacity for establishing close and enduring relationships, the passion to lead by engaging the hearts of team members, and the self-discipline that will earn them the respect and trust of team members. And I agree again with the statement presented earlier that trust and trustworthiness must be earned rather than assumed by leaders. Becoming a more effective leader often requires changing behavior by adjusting underlying mindsets that lie beyond leaders' comfort zones. I had the opportunity many years ago of meeting Keynote at a program in London. He was at the time the Chief Executive Officer of Norges Bank Investment Management, which managed the Sovereign Investment Fund of Norway, totaling in those days $230 billion. He was having a cup of tea in the break and picked up a cupcake which fell apart in his hands. And the crumbs scattered over the table in front of us. So I picked up another cupcake worth maybe 10 pence and offered it to him. And to my surprise, he looked like that and declined to accept it. Instead, he went on collecting the crumbs in his own hands and said, "This should not go to waste." The importance of inspiring today's leaders to emulate such values-based behavior cannot be overstated for the success of any organization or society. He demonstrated to us the values of modesty, integrity, self-assurance, and moderation. Choosing to align our personal values with organizational objectives offers a motivating source for our career progression. The inspiring educator Michelle Borba pointed that our moral intelligence can be learned, but it must be consciously modeled and nurtured to be sustained and achieved in practice. A towering and inspiring leader of the 20th century was the former president of South Africa, Nelson Mandela. Nelson Mandela was never wavered in his commitment to the values of inclusive democracy, equality, and learning. And despite terrible provocations, he had not responded to racism with intolerance. Following his release from prison in 1990, where for decades he had suffered harsh and inhumane treatment, his choice of the policy of reconciliation and negotiation helped lead the peaceful transition to multiracial democracy in South Africa. His guiding principle was, and I quote, "One country, one nation, one people, marching together into the future." Academic business schools employ case studies and role modeling in coaching leadership competencies and providing leadership education and training. Role modeling is a powerful educational tool for nurturing and inspiring values-based leadership and for the leader's development of organizational skills. Currently, authors have recognized that leadership students come from all over the world and want to see examples and names that they recognize and that have resonance with their own cultural heritage and experience. Now, the seerah of Prophet Muhammad has been a revered source of religious knowledge and moral teachings for Muslims. Our hypothesis that the seerah narratives can also be a valuable source for human resource development and learning organizational leadership competencies. Can we prove that? Can we demonstrate that? This is my next part of the lecture. The following narratives will offer some illustrations from the seerah that are relevant to the advancement of values-based organizational leadership and can be used for education, training. Values such as human dignity, honesty, altruism, benevolence, and compassion were celebrated by Muhammad with a public endorsement. So it wasn't just celebrated personally, but he tried to inspire his followers and the society at large and humanity beyond that to look forward and emulate those values. So he endorsed those values publicly with his exemplary actions as a leader. He not only preached the values or the virtues of these values, but he put them into practice. He walked the talk as an authentic leader. One story is when gold lost its temptation. It's about inspiring integrity and trust. Gold has always had an enchanting influence on mankind. One might even describe its attraction as magical. However, a prophetic tradition recorded the story of two individual role models for whom gold did not exercise such captivating temptation. And the tradition is as follows. A man bought a piece of land from another man, and the buyer found a clay jar filled with gold buried in the land. The buyer said to the seller, "Take your gold, I have bought only the land from you, but not the gold treasure." The owner of the land, the previous owner of the land, said, "I have sold you the land with everything in it." So both took their case for arbitration, and the mediator asked, after listening to the case, "Do you have any children?" One of them said, "I have a boy." The other said, "I have a girl." And the arbitrator advised them, marry the girl to the boy and spend the money on both of them and give some in charity. What does the story tell us? The story describes a disagreement, the nature of which runs contrary to human experience today. It's a masterclass in leadership coaching, where organizational leaders are motivated by the narrative's role models to practice the values of integrity and honesty. It was the spirit of Iman and the pursuit of its moral code that had inspired their ethical response. The story also promotes a mutual gains approach to managing competing claims. Embracing a win-win approach advances collaboration between the parties and encourages a healthy working relationship within an organizational context. Altruism, another value. Inspiring a motivating vision of a purposeful life requires exemplary practices that embrace the aims of compassion and generosity. Prophet Muhammad exemplified the virtues of generosity and altruism as part of his tradition. A sheep was slaughtered and major portions of its meat were distributed out. When Prophet came back home, he asked how much was left of the sheep. His wife replied, nothing remained except the shoulder. We kept the shoulder. Thereupon, he explained to her and to his followers and to the whole world, to humanity. He said, the whole of it has remained to us except the shoulders. The whole of it has remained to us that we have given out except the shoulder, denoting the lasting heavenly reward of the virtues of generosity and altruism, hence encouraging the spirit of giving and sharing as opposed to keeping and hoarding. The essence of idealized influence rests on the transformational leader's ability to motivate group members to accomplish the goals of unity, empowerment, and service. Unity, empowerment, and service. Idealized influence, which is the second component of a transformational leader, encompasses modeling exemplary practices such as aligning values with actions, fostering collaboration between team members, recognizing and celebrating members' contributions, and inspiring an exciting future with shared aspirations. As such, it builds momentum for hard work, resolute sacrifices for organizational goals, and a sense of effective commitment to the organizational purposes. The transformational leader supports the efforts of his team members by giving them individual attention and appreciation, empowering them to take initiatives, and encouraging them to respond with autonomy to challenges that match their interests and expertise. When the followers lack that expertise essential for the task, the leader will step in to provide feedback, coaching, and mentoring assistance. There is a growing body of scholarship suggesting that individualized consideration motivates employees by nurturing self-esteem and sustaining their confidence to tackle challenges. The research by Moynihan and his team established that transformational leadership has a positive direct effect on public service motivation, which matters to a great variety of employee behaviors and actions, leading to improved levels of services and organizational outcomes, such as lower turnover rates, employee satisfaction, and higher level of productivity and service excellence. Muhammad was known for his leadership traits even before the start of his prophethood. He was renowned for showing concern for humans in need and for his benevolent support of those who have fallen into hardship. His mission reinforced his personal commitment to identify the proficiencies and needs of his followers, which enabled him to inspire them into productive actions. He used prayers to empower his followers and his companions. Just imagine the impact of his supplication for Muawiyah, whom he had spotted as a talented young man, saying, "O Allah, teach Muawiyah the book and numeracy and protect him from retribution." His concern for them extended beyond their spiritual welfare to include their material and mental well-being, thus safeguarding the welfare of women, men, and children. Muhammad's counsel concerning social care issues was instrumental in sustaining family life and social harmony. Strengthening the social fabric based on shared values was one of his primary aims. He was aware of the need to provide protection to the socially vulnerable individuals, such as widows, young children, and orphans. He offered spiritual incentives to the guardians and the champions of social support. He said, "I and the person who looks after an orphan and provides for him will be in paradise like this," putting his index and middle fingers together. Prophet Muhammad also underlined the significant reward of paradise for whoever provides livelihood for 3 girls, equally true for 2 or 1, educates them, be merciful towards them, and show kindness to them. The other component of transformational leadership is inspirational motivation. In fact, it is so important to organizational success that Professor Rosabeth Moskanter used it to define the art of leadership. She said, "The art of leadership is to inspire action and guide people in productive directions." Transformational leaders use their inspirational motivation to heighten the will and enthusiasm of their followers. An important aspect of inspirational motivation is the leader's ability to recognize and incentivize talent and excellence. By doing so, the transformational leader will highlight role models like beacons who would become a source of encouragement to the group and will stimulate positive action. Muhammad was well pleased with how one of his companions, Al-Ashaj Abdul Qais, conducted himself in public at their first meeting. He was therefore invited to sit next to the Prophet and was complimented with the words, I quote, "Indeed, there are 2 traits in you that Allah loves, forbearance and thoughtfulness or deliberation." You don't rush things. You take your time. Forbearance and thoughtfulness or deliberation. That was the leaders, that was Muhammad's public commendation of 2 traits that he desired his followers to emulate. The followers of Muhammad were young masters in their own discipline, and there was no shortage of talent in their ranks. Muhammad's task was to recognize and encourage his followers to realize their potential. Digging a moat to protect Medina from an invading army was the novel idea of Salman. The geography of Medina was well suited to the implementation of such a defense strategy. Muhammad himself shared in the digging of the moat. He worked with an axe and shovel, digging and then carrying the soil away while joining others, chanting suitable rhymes to keep high the team spirit and morale. A public recognition of Salman's role was evident when the immigrants and the helpers were keen to claim him to themselves. So the immigrants called Salman is one of us, while the helpers were saying Salman is one of us. Now the Prophet, peace be upon him, interjected at that moment. And he said, and he was quick to announce, that Salman is a member of my household. That was a form of inspirational recognition of Salman's role that many would have hoped to be granted at that time. So he was quick to acknowledge and recognize the contribution of Salman's ideas and good work. The fourth and last component of transformational leadership is intellectual stimulation. The leader doesn't provide all the answers, even if it is known to him. Because the point is to bring his followers up and enable them, empower them to think for themselves. The leader's role is to encourage members of the group to think for themselves and empower them to take a leading role with confidence. In a similar but rather more direct illustration of the leader's ability to motivate his followers to think independently was that encounter between the Prophet and his companion Mu'adh ibn Jabal. He selected Mu'adh to be his emissary to Yemen, and Mu'adh was informed of this important role, but at the same time he was intellectually tested. How will you make a judgment or settle a dispute? Asked the Prophet. When Mu'adh gave his answer, the second question immediately followed. What will you do if you do not find the decree in the text of the Quran? Mu'adh gave his answer. The second question came through. What will you do if you don't find anything in the Quran? Then Mu'adh answered, and then the Prophet challenged him even a step further, saying, what will you do if you could not find a reference to that in my tradition? And Mu'adh gave his third answer, and then Prophet encouraged him by commending his creative thinking. Muhammad's approach in this instant was not instructive. We all recognize that he could have said to Mu'adh, do 1, do 2, do 3. But he asked, what would you do in 1, in 2, in 3, enabling him to come up with his own answers. So Muhammad's approach in this instance was not instructive, but rather inquiring, illustrating the leader's role in making others think about new ways to perform the task and empowering them to be creative in their own problem-solving methods. In conclusion, the transformational leadership concepts have been associated with improved performance in public sector organizations. Researchers, in their study of modern leadership principles for public administration, have called for the inclusion of the transformational leadership context and values-based leadership principles in the development of a new public leadership theory. This is based on empirical evidence that is all available in the literature for those of you who may be interested. And these are the reasons they found, or they quoted, why it acts like that. It clarifies purposes and values of the organization, which is an important part for keeping the direction and the focus in mind of all the group or team members, the people working. And it creates an organizational culture where values are consistently practiced, from the top man to the managers to the others. And that creates an organizational culture of values-based leadership. It embraces change, encourages critical thinking, problem solving, and gives confidence to the employees that they will not be reprimanded or punished or blamed for any mistakes that may happen. And finally, by sharing successes and acknowledging good contribution and the excellence of work, it motivates and empowers the workforce. And that is an important part for the achievement of organizational goals and objectives. The Sira narratives provide useful material for the development of a wide range of early career professionals, as well as those who aspire to a leadership role in the public sector. It is intended to illustrate the quality of a wide range of team building and leadership competencies based on exemplary practices of a role model with proven success. Prophet Muhammad's transformational model provides an effective path to learning how to lead. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Kindly remain on stage, Dr. Basil. We now invite Associate Professor Dr. Dayang Afizah binti Awang Marikan, Dean of the Faculty of Economics and Business at University of Malaysia Sarawak, UNIMAS, on stage to present a token of appreciation to Dr. Basil Mustafa. Once again, thank you so much to Dr. Basil Mustafa.